in, and I'll write about fun robot things that I like, and all that.
Yeah, Shannon has a question. Speaking about
Sure.
writing about things and your interest, any have you been doing any advocacy for cryonics recently?
I haven't. Oh, I haven't touched on that a whole lot
Not a
recently
whole
because
lot.
But I mean, it's always kind of in the back of my mind though, just because I always think, well, it makes sense to. I think that I think it's one of those things where it's only a matter of time before it is just mainstream, because they already have things where they cool people down to stop them from dying of heart attacks, and so it's going to be only a matter of time before they start, finding somebody who's like an accident victim and they're in like a coma they can't bring them out of, and instead of just keeping them on the life support machines, they might say, well, why don't we just freeze them and then we'll wake them up when we figure out how to fix their brain. So
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I
I just
perceive
think
it too.
going in that direction, and I almost don't think there's a whole lot. I mean, I think that the science needs to be funded, but I think it is being. I think it's kind of like we're going to get there.
Yeah, it does feel that way to me as well. I mean, that it just, to me, it just is so logical. And it doesn't violate any laws of physics. And I guess it's just a social resistance to
Well, I
cryonics.
also I don't. The thing is, I think it's also just an obscurity thing, as in most people haven't heard of it, and also just there's probably people thinking in terms of, well, why would they want to wake me up in the future anyway? As in, which is just something I wondered too, like because I mean, there's going to be people saying, well, why are we keeping all these people frozen? Who's going to maintain it? And then there are going to be all the. I really have to wonder what the libertarians think about that in terms of, well, what if they get some kind of a stock program going on, and then their stocks crash? Are they going to say, well, people should keep you frozen anyway, or just, well, survival of the frozen fittest, we'll just unplug me?
Well,
So,
many libertarians are cryonicists, is what I've
yeah,
found.
I've noticed that,
Uh,
and I'm not. This is okay, and this is nothing against, say, libertarians or anything. Some of my good friends are libertarians, so
sure,
it's nothing
sure.
to do with that. It's just, I just have to wonder how that works. And people are free to mail me about that or explain it to me if they
Oh,
want.
well, myself, I lean libertarian myself as far as a
Okay.
political
Oh, okay.
philosophy.
Well, if you could tell me then, like, how do you expect what would be your
It just,
expectations for Cryonics through into the future and the funding of that?
well, it is an interesting juxtaposition as far as people, I think, maybe libertarians, I'm not speaking for all libertarians, but they are all about individual choice, right, and individual freedom, and they should have the freedom to determine how their body is disposed of when they die or when they have a terminal illness, and that's why they sign up for chronics, because hey, it's my body, I want to stay alive, I've got money to suspend myself. But then also in the future, it's obviously going to take society at large, the whole social system, to preserve and to resuscitate or deanimate or reanimate, reanimate all these people who are cryonically frozen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because society is going to have to accept cryonics in order for these people to continually be suspended and then eventually be reanimated in the future. So, yes, libertarians are signing up for it from an individual freedom perspective, an individual choice perspective, which I totally support, obviously. People should be able to do what they want with their bodies. But
Yeah. Well,
then,
on terms of in terms of issues like that, I'm extremely freedom oriented as well.
sure.
So I definitely think people should have the right to do that. It's just a matter of Well, I guess maybe some people are banking on, well, maybe I'll only be frozen for 10 years or so, and then they'll figure out a way to, I guess it depends on what their prediction is of when they'll find a way to
And
reverse the damage.
many people who sign up for cryonics are basically they're hoping or they're betting on that the value of a human life will be enough so that future generations will care about resuscitating people who are
Yep.
suspended.
That actually leads me into something else, which is what I think one of the areas I'm also really interested in. There's a lot of overlap for me in disability rights as well, which I think that it's a matter of I think that humans choose what to value basically, and it does seem like some kinds of people are valued less than others, and I think it would actually benefit the more forward-thinking type people and cryonicists to start emphasizing the value of individuals regardless of physical condition, etc.
Right.
Because in a sense, if you have a cryonics person, I mean that's a pretty severe disability right there. So you want to think, well, do we really just want to say let's just throw these people away? I would say
Right.
no. It's a
No.
matter of, well, if they wanted to live, obviously they have they have expressed their desire to go on living, and if that was me, I would definitely want that to be respected.
Yes,
And
myself
my
as well.
family was like a family member of mine, and they told me, please try to help me get out of this as soon as I can. Then I would want to follow their wishes. I wouldn't want to say for them, well, no, sorry, we don't need you anymore, or something. That would be horrible.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing, like in my most recent post I wrote about, is people go to a lot of great lengths to preserve things like old paintings and books and things. Why don't people deserve that same standard?
Right.
They're just as unique. So.
Yeah, that's right. Now I see we're getting to be about 40 minutes into our broadcast or more.
Sorry about.
No, it's great. It's a great conversation, and everyone, we've had some good questions here tonight. The one question I wanted to get to before we close things up, that may, in fact, have us continue here for a little while, is the gender issue.
Okay.
Now, whenever I read anyone in, say, mainstream media outlets, newspapers or TV or whatever, whenever they cover, say, the Immortality Institute conference in 2005, or maybe the WTA conference last year in Chicago, wherever they go, or even Methuselah, type events like SENS 1, 2, and the UABA conference, they always remark, well, the audience was filled with a bunch of young to middle-aged men, and maybe one or two women were present. And they always have to bring up that comment, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just, I guess it's a good thing to report on what was going on at this particular conference and who was there. But they always say, well, it just seems like a fringe topic that appeals to geeky young men. But why would you say, if for whatever reason there aren't as many women involved in such future type topics or technology, science type issues, or the Methuselah Foundation, what have you?
Well, actually, there are a fair number of women working on the Methuselah Foundation, I think.
I know, and I know plenty of brilliant women and passionate women who are very involved in many of these organizations. However, it does seem when you go to a conference, or even mainstream things like CES, in Vegas, it seems. What does it boil down to in your mind as to why? Is it a social thing that women aren't raised to appreciate or delve into science with gusto when they're young or when they're being educated? What's the issue?
Yeah, I think that is actually a huge part of it, because one thing I've noticed is that, at least, like for instance, I was always very interested in science from a young age, and that was encouraged. Like my dad was extremely supportive of that interest. Yeah, and he was a geek too. He was really interested in science fiction, and we'd read the same books and things like that. So I got a lot of really good, solid. I never had any sense there was anything wrong with me being a girl and liking science. That was just one of those things where it would. I was shocked to find out that some people actually thought that, and I was horrified. And when I was about 9 years old, I went into like this radical feminist type thing, and I was, going on like, well, what the heck is going on? Why do they think all girls want to wear pink and, play with fluffy Barbie dolls all day? And so I was just, I was a little bit, as I tend to be pretty, when I get into things, I get really into them. So
sure.
I'm pretty cool about that for a while. But, now I'm sort of, I do think I do think there is an issue, but I don't think shouting about it is necessarily the best way to address it. I think, one thing I've been kind of hoping at some point to do is maybe somehow contribute to something that helps support science education for girls, because I think that there is a huge social stigma in, say, starting in the middle elementary years.
Yes, I think it is. I think it is getting better though in the last couple of years.
It's getting better. There's been a few setbacks though, and if there's one thing that drives me crazy it's when I see people saying things like, well, they're just genetically not interested, so everything's fine. We don't need to make any effort. There's no such thing as discrimination. I'm kind of exaggerating here.
You're exaggerating. Yeah, I know.
But I have seen a lot of people saying, well, we have to acknowledge there are biological differences between men and women. I'm like, yes, there are, but yes, just because A, B does not follow. You cannot say, well, because we can demonstrate on brain imaging that the structure is different, You can say this is the math module or something, or you can say this is the thing that makes people interested in computers.